Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. Or if you've been listening more recently, we are sort of, adding a couple of extra tablespoons of woo-woo in place, I think, as we go. So each week, my guests tend to be around the holistic health arena, whether that's for the mental, the physical, or the spiritual perspective, or a combination of all three. I'm your host. My name is Karen Roberts. I am also a holistic transformation coach, where I help people just find their mojo, really, getting them back on track with regards to nutrition, exercise, mindset, and vibration. So this week, my guest, well, I'm going to let her explain. So if you could share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story, please, Laura.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto the cup of coffee with Karen, is it?
Yeah.
So, I'm Laura Beddoe and I am a intuitive mindset coach, and I predominantly work with women, and I help them to really step out of that survival mode, stepping into a life where they are looking for abundance, pleasure, and financial freedom. And these are all things that are our birthright. And, so many of us are just living by that sort of survival, the bare minimum, and that expression, how are you getting on? Fine is a really good statement. And, it's getting people to shift out of that. Yeah. That's
awesome. And how did this come about? How did you find yourself on your path? If you could share a bit of your story, Laura.
Yeah, so there's so many different parts of the story, and I'm glad we've got an hour because there's quite a lot of parts. But I think the most predominant important part for what I'm going to be talking about today, I'm going to be talking about how you can really start to harness and start to manifest a life beyond your wildest imagination by really connecting with your cycles. And I was really shocked when we spoke, Karen, that you had never heard of any of the things.
Never. But weirdly, I'm trying to think how many, it must have been only a couple of weeks after we spoke, somebody again did speak about this. And I was like, oh, wow, I'd never heard the connection between, obviously, I suppose maybe it connects with the moon cycle. So I'd heard about the moon cycle, but not hearing it from a definite, specific connection to, our monthly cycle. So, fascinated.
Yeah, and I think it's that I'm really this isn't only what I do, but it's one of my unique selling points in my business, and I'm really being called to talk about this right now. So many people, I'm being booked left, right, and centre to come into people's communities, because it's so important that we are connecting. We're always looking outside of ourselves for answers.
Yeah.
And the thing is that everything that we need is inside of us. Everything's already there. But sometimes it takes people like me or you, Karen, to obviously draw it out and be a mirror for somebody to really find the answers. So my story, as I said, there's a few parts, but I've had a few dark moments of the soul, moments of depression and real self-loathing, growing up with a real toxic environment, where I just didn't feel lovable. I didn't feel safe, just sort of went in and had those very toxic relationships around me. And as I'm sure that you already talk about, is that we are formed from our conditioning. Like everything that all of the behaviors that we're displaying, it's only from what we have learned as children or as young adults. And for me, feeling that kind of unsafe and feeling didn't like myself. I didn't like myself very much at all. And for somebody that knows me for a long time, they would say to me, but you became a model when you were 20. Like, how can you say you didn't like yourself? I didn't like myself. I was looking for validation from others. That's why I went into a business where people were telling me how pretty I was, because I didn't think that I was. And like fast forwards to many years later, just coming in and out of toxic relationships, I hit a rock bottom where I just didn't want to be here anymore. And from that day, I believe that I had a spiritual awakening. And I obviously don't want to go into it, and obviously this can be triggering for some people. It took a emergency team 6 hours to talk me off of a cliff top, because I really just didn't want to be here. And I often say that I believe that I'm still here to help people to climb back over that fence. I believe that I'm still here today to tell people and awaken people to know that actually the best days of your life might not have even happened yet. You don't know what's going to happen a week from now, a year from now. And how amazing is it that I did climb back over that fence, and I'm here to tell the tale, and I help so many people. But the predominant part of my story was years later, doing a lot of work on myself, and I'd met my soulmate by this point, and I was already a healer. And I wasn't trying for a baby, but I had an ectopic pregnancy, basically, where I didn't know I was pregnant. I was having real bad pains, and I was one of those people, because of my conditioning, that I was one of them people that I used to actually say the expression "man up." Always was in very, very very male orientated roles. I worked in corporate. I was very much, I sort of became a chameleon to what men would say and expect of us. And I think so many of us do that. We behave in a certain way. Sorry, you was going to say something.
No, I was just agreeing with you. My closest friends, it's almost like an ongoing joke, because my saying was deal with it. And you're so right. It's interesting that sometimes it takes something to bring you out of that, because I wasn't aware. So you weren't aware at that time that it was these predominantly male traits. So yes, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No. This is a conversation, isn't it? It's not just chatting at you. This is what it's about, isn't it? It's about collaboration. It's about raising the consciousness together. And it was. I was very much in that mindset of man up. I didn't go to the doctors unless it was like I absolutely had to go. And luckily the universe intervened, and I had a laceration. Another story. I had a laceration to the eye. I jumped off. I did this drop called the vertigo, where you jump off a building, and basically one of the straps hit me in the eye, and that was what made me go to the doctors. But luckily I went to the doctors, because if I wasn't at the doctors at that time and I talked about these pains, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here, because I was already basically, when you have an ectopic pregnancy, your fallopian tube, it means that the baby's stuck in the fallopian tube. And I didn't know anything about this kind of thing. And obviously my doctor said to me whilst I was in the surgery about my eye, are you pregnant? And I said, no, I'm not pregnant. I'm not trying to get pregnant. And she's like, are you sure? And I was like, I've recently had a period, so I'm definitely not pregnant. And she said, just do me a favor, when you get home, just do a pregnancy test. So I got home, did a pregnancy test, and I literally nearly fell off the toilet seat because I said I was pregnant. And that's where it sort of kicked in that, well, this isn't right. This isn't right. So went up to the hospital, and whilst they was examining me, it must have erupted whilst I was there, and obviously internally bleeding. Yeah. And for me, obviously, I'm a healer, and I believe that everything is trying to either teach us something or is a blessing in life. And obviously, it was a horrible time in my life. I really, and I was really digging for, like, what does this mean? Because I didn't have a fallopian tube after that, and it really made me want a baby. And this is where I went on a journey to really connect with my cycle and learn about what did it mean for me. And I've learned, and this is what I teach, is that I wasn't connected to my body. I wasn't treating my body with respect. I wasn't nurturing it. I wasn't loving it. I was very much teaching about manifestation, but coming from a point of, I want this thing that's outside of me, when actually, for us to be in complete alignment, we must look at all the parts of us: mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, and don't you find it fascinating that there's so many? I mean, look, there's so many different coaches out there, and it's all teaching one aspect as though this is the most important thing. And you're so right. We're getting it wrong. It's all in balance. Like, I come from a more of a physical healing background, right? I went the normal route of learning about the body and very sort of physical. So I was a sports therapist for 27 years, and I really not regretted, but just wished that really everybody had learned a little bit of everything, because you'd either go to a doctor, and really the only thing they're going to fix if you come in with an injury would be anti-inflammatory or a pain. It's not really helping. Or you'd go to some people go to an acupuncture or shiatsu or massage or osteopath, and all these different modalities, and everyone's saying sort of their way is the right way. And actually, if we all learned the whole thing, we could then look at a client and treat the client in a holistic way and say, maybe you need a couple of treatments, from a chiropractic point of view, together with a massage, and because it's not one road leads to Rome, is it? It's treating everything, and maybe actually that problem, that pain, is stemming from an emotional issue, some kind of trauma from way back. And it just really, for me, seems a shame that all these things are spread out, and actually we all need to collaborate, because it's treating the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. There isn't no point in just doing one thing, because there's going to have a knock-on effect on somewhere else, right?
But how amazing is it that we're waking up to that? How amazing is it that we are, as a universe, as a collective, that we are the consciousness. Like, I was talking about this stuff 6 years ago, and people would look at me like I was nuts. Like manifestation and some of the things that I'm an advocate for, and I facilitate moon circles, and just as you put it, woo woo. It's science. When you really strip it all back, it makes sense. That if you are still in the fixed mindset of thinking that we're just born here and then there's nothing else to it. I mean, look around you, look at all of obviously the media is very much trying to get us to focus on the negatives, because of that's how they box us and get us to do what they want us to do, and look where they want us to look. But actually, if you really wanted to create your own news every single day and look for the miracles every single day that are around you, little tiny things that that happen all of the time. And yeah, just we make it so complicated. Do you know what? We make it so bloody complicated, and it is actually, when you strip it all back, it's really simple.
It is. Where do you think this comes from? Because I mean, I know that's a negative trait that I have. I tend to overcomplicate everything. You know, I know it. Obviously, a lot of it comes from our upbringing and our schooling. We're taught, or we're conditioned to actually not look within. You know, that would actually be quite arrogant to think that we have the answers within. We've got to look out at that textbook and listen to that teacher and that teacher. So it's almost like it's like bashed out of us, this have faith in yourself. And maybe that's where it comes from. We're so sort of separated from that when we follow the normal route, you know, that every child goes through the schooling system, right? It's been knocked out of us unless we've been made aware of it through our peers, through friends, or books that we've chosen to read, or videos that we've chosen to watch, because it just seems like we've just been taught to not trust. And that, I love what you said there about that. Everything we know, everything we need is within us. But, you know, how can, say, the listeners who are, you know, maybe new to this, how can they, are they going to, well, how do I trust myself?
Well, it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process. And like you say, not all, you know, it's not just one path, and it's starting to, obviously you can do it by yourself. If you feel comfortable, if you took me back to, you know, where I first started my journey, where, you know, I didn't want to be here. I couldn't sit with myself then, because I felt so uncomfortable being me. I felt like my skin was crawling. If I tried to close my eyes and meditate, I just couldn't shut off my mind because it was so busy. So, of course, if you're somebody that is going through that right now, then reach out. And I know that the NHS I think this is only aired in the UK, but in the UK we have the NHS, and you know, they're really they're overworked. And I know that getting help from the NHS on mental health is right now it's overran. So it's then looking for other ways, like looking for, like, obviously the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. You know, if you look at an acronym for God, the great outdoors. So go and spend some time outside. Get off your phone and get into your body, move it, you know, and reach out to people. You know, there's so many free resources, and that's something that I did when my journey to become a coach really started in 2017. I was in an abusive relationship, when physical and mental, and I just went on YouTube and listened to different speakers and got inspiration from there. And it starts from there. And obviously, if you have got the money to invest in a coach or somebody that you trust, then definitely it's the best investment I've ever made, is the investment in myself, ultimately. And it is an investment, you know. If you have the funds to do that, then 100% go and do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of it is priorities, isn't it? And it's also, again, how we've been conditioned that everybody else should come first and we come last. So for some, I'm sure, you know, I used to think like this. For some, the idea of actually investing in a coach seemed, well, you know, that's real luxury, or that's, you know, because I've got to do this, 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 and this, and worry about this, 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 and this, and then that should come last. When actually, the reverse is true, isn't it? It's actually, look after yourself first. It's like, we're given the instructions on a plane. If something happens and the oxygen masks drop, you've got to put your mask on first before you can help anybody else. And it's the same with this, because if you're not where you want to be and things aren't quite going, you're falling into this cycle of maybe abusive relationships, failing at certain things. There's some kind of cycle going on. It would make sense to try and not fix, because none of us are broken, but find a different way to dealing with these things, because then, you can't give from an empty cup, right? And then you can do so much more for your family members. But do you not think that this sort of, I don't want to say backward way of thinking, again, it is our own conditioning and the stories that we've been feeding ourselves, but we have been in a way conditioned through schooling to think, well, that is like that's luxury, that's a bit selfish to go and invest in yourself. Whereas I would look at it actually the opposite way. It's the most, I agree with you, it's the most important thing that anybody could do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually what learning about the seasons and the cycles, like there's so much in it, like seeing yourself every single month as a woman, that we have a cycle, we have a death and a rebirth every single month. And that sounds quite dramatic if you're really new to this and you're thinking, well,
but it's true.
Do. And if you think about it this way, we are constantly evolving. If you looked at us under a little tiny magnifying glass, we are merely energy vibrating, like this chair that I'm sitting. The very fact that I can talk to you right now just is just obviously explains, that there's lasers all around us that we can't see all of the time. And by learning about yourself and learning that there are seasons that we go through, we have 4 seasons, which are when, obviously, if you bleed. Some women don't bleed, but the first season that we have is winter. So that's when we bleed. So this is also known as the wise woman. So, and what can we learn from this season? We can learn that we need to rest and rejuvenate to receive. It's just like, with training the physical body. I'm talking about the spiritual body. To actually get results on your physical body, what do you need to do?
Yeah,
you need to rest.
That's when you grow, is when you're resting. The rest period, which a lot of people don't pay notice of. They want to work. But it's actually when you're in recovery is when the strength, you get stronger, you get better.
Yeah. So that's what we can learn from the bleed. And actually it's a time to go within. It's a time to like rest, rejuvenate. It's like, and it's also, if you look at the seasons of womanhood, this is also known as the wise woman or the crone. Now, the crone is something that was introduced later on because the patriarchy, the systems that support us, which are for the good and the bad, we need some sort of structure as society. But women, if you go back in history, that's when women were burnt at the stake, were drowned because they were witches, right? So that's when the word crone was kind of put down to being an ugly witch, when actually it's not. It actually represents the wiseness of an elderly woman, that she's a leader, and that's what that part of the cycle is trying to teach us. So like you said, it's like everything, we've been conditioned to think in a certain way, like the bleed is bad, like we
don't talk about it. We don't talk about that. It's like
and it's a bit like elderly people aren't treated with the respect that they deserve these days, and women feel like they have to stay young and act in this, once they get past a certain age in media, say for instance, that actually they're a write-off now, but men, as they get older, they mature.
Yes.
And it's just the way that we've been conditioned. So if we can start to reframe that part of our months, if we do have a bleed, that is giving us an invitation to slow down, And obviously I go really deep into this if people
Mhm.
come and work with me. But and then we have spring. So I'm actually currently in spring, and when we organised this interview, I made sure that I would be within either my spring or my summer, because I knew that I would be at my best. And the spring is like when, and I'm sure you're feeling me, Karen. It's when the bleed stops and you feel like you can do loads of things, like all of the things that irritate you earlier on in the month. Like your partner could say something to you and you'd be like, what did you say? They could say exactly the same thing to you in this part of the season, and you would laugh and be playful about it. It's because of
Uh-huh.
obviously the hormones that we're producing. And it's also known as the maiden. And it's like the innocence of us, like the playful side and creating. This is when we are most creative. And then going into the mother, obviously that's when we're ovulating, when we can really nurture ourselves and go into that self-care. We have been conditioned that we need to care, because it's called the mother. We need to care for everybody else and forget about ourselves. But what use is that if we
Yeah.
are sitting there resentful and thinking, well, and getting into that feeling of when your body is tight as well. And I'm sure you know this, when our body is tight, like our bodies don't process food as well. It's so much in nurturing and taking care of ourselves. And then going into the last part is the autumn. That's when we're feeling like really irritable, and that week leading up to your periods, usually, where some people get, and I know when I reached out to you and we arranged this, it's like, what can our actual leading up to our bleed, it's trying to tell us something. So we've been taught to suppress our feelings, like we've been taught to not talk about our vulnerability, not talk about the parts that are, oh, she's during her period, she's hormonal. Actually, yes, she's hormonal, she's a woman, and she's fundamentally different. And it's like that part of the month is to ask yourself, what do I need? What do I need? And how many of us ask ourselves, what do I need? What does Laura need? What does Karen need to, be the light that the world needs so desperately?
Right. Love that. So it really is, I suppose it's another validation almost that it's okay to go through these different phases, feelings, because we're either told that we've always got to be happy, we've always got to be on form, but actually we don't always feel like that, and we shouldn't be. It's a negative to try and force us into that, because it's okay to go with our natural flow. And like you say, I think you said right at the beginning, which I wanted to question you on, is most people do tend to go through life quite mundane. It's almost like it's conditioned. Like, you said about asking somebody how they are, and they said, yeah, I'm fine. When actually we want to embrace the lifts and be okay with the dips as well, and go with it and rest, because isn't that life is a constant flow, rather than, like one straight line means we're dead, doesn't it? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be there. We want the ups and downs, and it's fascinating. Now you've explained it. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so obvious. Oh my goodness, it's so obvious, and it's not like with a minority. This is half the population. Hello.
Yeah.
Like, why has it not been spoken about before? Why have we been told to be quiet about it, or quiet about that part? And even, I think what I'm going through is early menopause. So, but it's almost like, shh, zip it, go away, and deal with your stuff. Whereas this is affecting, we are half the population.
Yeah. And the thing is that if you go back in history, that because when we know this stuff, it makes us more powerful, because it isn't just about us creating babies, it's about harnessing and tapping into our energy centers to actually unleash anything that we're birthing. So whether it's you're birthing a new business or a new idea or whatever it is that you are creating to, manifestation is a word that is very much thrown around right now. But actually all that manifestation is, if you break it down, is the non-physical, so your thoughts, subconscious thinking, coming into reality. So this 3D world that we see. So it's anything that we want to create into the world. If we can really tap into our cycle as a woman, and perimenopause and menopause, you still have seasons and cycles. The moon is the thing that is bringing in the tides, that it controls the water. And we're made up of 80% of water. So, when you think about it, in the aspect of why women get, say there's a saying that, women can, get a bit more cranky on the new moon, or, you can get headaches, or you can feel a bit low in energy. It's because the moon is obviously not just women. This is men as well. But that's why, because the moon is what is creating the tides.
Yeah, it does make it something. I mean, like you said, I think earlier about we overcomplicate things. It's when we get back to our natural, accepting this. This is who we are. This is how things are. There are universal laws. There are things going on, whether you believe it or not. It's happening, and science proves that the moon does have an effect on the tide. So it would make sense, logically thinking, yes, we're 70% water. So why wouldn't it affect us in some way? Just because the doctors and the scientists can't see it with their physical, with their eyesight, or you can't cut a body up and see what was happening. A lot of this has got to be done on faith. But when you explain it like that, it just makes total sense. And brilliant. I'm sure the listeners, and I'm sure it is majority women anyway, I'm sure they can relate to that. It makes sense. I'm definitely less tolerant just before my mood. I can be very up and down in an instant anyway. I think I can be affected quite a lot. But it's just rather than fighting against, it's almost like we're taught to constantly have this battle against things, as opposed to allowing and just going with.
Yeah, just having that acceptance, like, okay, right, and it will be affected more, with the food that you eat and the way that you exercise. And obviously, the people that do come in and into my group programs or membership or one-to-one, the things that we learn is obviously, you talked about that roller coaster ride of emotions, and obviously if you're flatline then you're dead. But it's like, how can you my life, the way that it used to be, it was really like up here and down here, and it was like all over the place. And today I like it to be a bit more steady, so that it isn't so like these highs and massive lows, and how we can get more peace and more serenity, and like those really high level feelings are by looking at what we're eating, what our routines are, what is our identity that we're adopting. Are we kind to ourselves? Or are we being really horrible to ourselves? Because I know that week leading up to my period, I can be horrible to myself, really horrible. I mean, last week was that time, and I just invite myself. I tell my family, I give myself permission, and I say, I'm going to have an early night, and I'm going to have a nice bath, candles, have a lovely time, and I get my journal out, and I I ask that part of me what it needs.
Right.
And last week the perfectionist in me was running the show. She wanted everything. One little crumb on the side was like, oh. And that's because she was frightened. She was frightened if everything isn't perfect, then she wasn't good enough.
Right.
So it's like unpeeling the layers. Yeah.
Right. Love that. And again, it's going back to how we're conditioned. I love what you said about,
Sorry,
we do.
my dog's just come in the room, and
That's
he's
okay.
very noisy. He's come to say hello. He's gorgeous.
Bless. Yeah, we do tend to be more unkind to ourselves than we would ever, ever speak to anybody. Our worst enemy, we wouldn't speak to the way sometimes we speak to ourselves. And going back to the fact that we are majority water. I can't remember his name. Was he Japanese that did the photos of the water crystals? I've mentioned this. I'm a bit obsessed with it. The fact that when they photograph these water under microscopes, and the individual perfect beautiful water crystals that are like snowflakes, and then speaking joy, peace, love, because at the end of the day it's an energy, it's a frequency, right? And then these water crystals are perfect, and then the flip side of that, speaking or pushing out the feelings of the negative, even if saying Hitler and a Holocaust, all these negative stuff. And the proof, the science, there's proof there. All of a sudden, those water crystals looked all damaged and all ugly. So even that is isn't that scientific proof that the way we speak to ourselves, which you said earlier, we are the majority water, is that not going to have an effect on ourselves? And it's where does this come from? This acceptance that it's okay to talk to yourself like that, whereas we're taught not to speak to other people like that. And man, it's when you do step back and have a look at what we do to ourselves, it seems crazy. But like you said about feelings of self-worth, again, it's all tied in, or it seems tied into me, that the way we somehow, somewhere along the line, where we've gone to school, whatever we've taught, somehow the something's got lost in translation, and we've found ourselves being conditioned to not know our worth, or acknowledge our worth, or feel that it's even okay to feel worthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's all about money at the end of the day. It's consumerism. If we don't feel worthy, then if we go and buy that product, then we're enough. If we go and we go and whatever, then there's going to be a solution outside of ourselves.
Right.
So it's knowing that actually it starts with you. That everything starts with you. So if you want change, be the change. If you are unhappy with the people that you are surrounding yourself, but you're just continuously moaning about it, or complaining about it, bitching about it, and you're not changing anything about it, and that was me 6-7 years ago, continuously bitching and complaining about my life, but I didn't change anything. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and not changing anything. So it's actually looking at, okay, even if it's a small change, it might be something really small that you can do. And that's what people tend to think. Again, coming back to that simplicity, people tend to think that it's going to be this massive thing that's going to, transform your life. But it might just be something really small, like getting up half an hour earlier and doing a guided meditation, going out for a walk, or just keeping it really simple.
It is that simple. And hands up. I think I used to almost wear as a badge of honour that I'm really busy. Like, I'm just busy. You know, I would start work ridiculously early in the morning, and I'll do one thing, and then I'll be doing that, and it's almost, I think it was some kind of avoiding doing things, because I wasn't necessarily progressing, but I was busy being busy. And my life has transformed so much now, but you know what? I don't get up till quite late because I do. First thing I do, I wake up, I have a very specific meditation. I take time, and then I might have a workout. You can even see in the background, I'll have a little bit of a workout, not too bad, mad. I'll go and relax and have a bath. I will take time. I'm spending more time in self-care, and yet I'm far more productive than when I'm just busy. I'm like wearing my badge. I'm just so busy. I'm busy being busy. And in which case I was just exhausted, actually. It is so funny that it just seems that everything is just flipped. Everything is flipped, and we've got this image that we seem to feel the need to keep up. And actually, like you say, actually strip it away. I love that. Everything, just strip it away. Uncomplicate it, strip it away, and back to basics.
Yeah. I'm writing a book about it. I'm writing a book about just how we are so distracted. We're so distracted from ourselves, and ultimately life can be really, really simple. It's just we're just conditioned to make it difficult for ourselves, because we can go around and point our fingers at everybody else. It's everybody else's fault, but actually it boils down to us to make the commitment. And I used to wear that badge of honor of I'm busy. I'm too busy to meditate. I'm too busy to go to a women's circle. And actually, when you start to do these things, take the time out, physically actually schedule into your diary, this is my time, not for anybody else. This is absolutely time for me to sit, read, listen to a podcast, meditate, do yoga, something just for me. And you will be amazed that once you start to strip out of all of that, it's just you're trapped in thinking. That's all it is, really. You're thinking, and it's a trauma response ultimately. And I specialise in trauma as a hypnotherapist. And and trauma can mean lots of things. It can be anything as simple as being bullied, or it can be something really like sexual abuse or something like that. But when we experience something like that in our lives and we're trapped in it, we make ourselves busy so that we don't have to think about it,
Again, avoidance. As I said earlier, I'm sure I was just it's just you're avoiding it. And it's the best thing that I did last year was definitely get rid of my telly. So I've done it. Actually, you can see I've just got a wall there, so we can watch things.
Yeah.
Me, my daughter, I think we've just gone back through the Harry Potter. We've just watched a Harry Potter film, I think, every night this week. That's it's a bit of our time together. We can have a bit of a giggle through it, but we do not have a television. I can't even. Not that I would try to avoid the news anyway, but you can't even. You don't have the opportunity to see it. That for me. Now I don't, and I refuse now to work evenings. I'm a lot more in balance on what really I'm accepting. I've set my boundaries finally. I mean, it's taken me a while. I'm obviously a bit of a slow learner. I'm going to be 50 in 2 months, so it's taken me a while to get here. But I do feel the difference in having set those boundaries and having that balance and not having that constant noise. That a lot of people just can't avoid. Well, they can if they chose, but now not having it, I don't even have the option of putting it on, has been massive for my. I think you said earlier, it's about that peace. That there's nothing that's that's more important than that. It is being able to just switch off from the distractions and actually listen to yourself. So for people that are listening, what are the different things that you have on offer? What sort of services do you have to offer them?
So I do a 8-week intensive one-to-one where basically we just go through a process of meeting your inner child and reprogramming yourself, getting to know your cycle, tracking your cycle, and just getting to know yourself, starting to love yourself internally. And then as you start to love yourself internally, you can start to build externally. So whether you want to attract your soulmate, whether you want to attract good friendships, whether you want to attract business opportunities, it's working on the inner stuff to then start to manifest the outer stuff. So yeah, that's the main way that people can work with me. Or I also do a moon circle once a month online, and it's called the Wild Woman Inner Tribe. The next one is on the 15th of March this year. Yeah, it's flying by, isn't it?
It is. January went on, and now it's like, where did February go? I'm sure I was complaining about how long January was going on for, and now February's disappeared. Where's it gone?
Yeah. So yeah, 15th of March is the next one. It's just £11, so it's really, really affordable, that option. And I'm going to be launching a membership in April. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And so for the listeners, how would they get in touch with you? I know we'll have all your links below if you're watching on YouTube or on the blog, but for the listeners specifically, how would they find you?
I'm on everything pretty much. Clubhouse, LinkedIn. My favorite social media tool is Instagram. The best way to reach out to me, or you can hit my website, which is thehealing-rooms.co.uk. That is my old bricks and mortar business that is actually being updated. I do have other links that are on my Instagram, so I would actually suggest going there. Obviously,
what's your Instagram
handle? It is Laura-Beddoe. No, not hyphen, underscore, sorry. underscore Beddoe underscore coach.mentor.
Awesome. Okay. So with regards to this focusing on the cycle, so you came across this, we heard your story of how you got into it. So what changes did you notice? What happened?
Everything. So just better relationships, better relationship with my fiance. I also have an 18-year-old son. Better relationship with him. External stuff. I was in 2017, I was homeless, living in a shelter, and now I live in a beautiful 4-bedroom house, and I have manifested the business and career of, honestly, it's my sole purpose. I know this is what I'm born to do, is to help women. So yeah, so many things.
Awesome. I mean, this whole idea of manifesting, I don't know how you feel, but do you think that a lot of people have got it, just they misunderstand it? So my sort of first, I suppose, introduction to the whole manifesting, thought process would probably, I'm going back, I don't know. Oh dear, my daughter's just turned 18. No. Yeah, no, it'll be my eldest. So about 21 years ago. And then I followed Bob Proctor a lot, and then he was going to be in The Secret, which was originally going to be a series in Australia, a documentary. And I would say that the best piece of advice I was ever given, I think, because probably everything did stem from this, was I said to one of the coaches from Bob Proctor that I'd ordered the DVD, and he said, there is so much depth to that film. He said, watch it twice a day for a month. And at the time, I thought he was crazy because, I wouldn't watch my favourite film 60 times. It's a long film. It's about 90 minutes, I think. I thought, again, my instant reaction was, badge, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to do that. I've just had a baby and I've got a 4-year-old and I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I've got to blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, well, I'm where I am and you're where you are. Maybe I should actually listen and not just listen, actually do. And it was, the best thing I ever did. We would never have owned our own fitness studio, didn't bought a house on the back of it, got everything changed. And I think the reason probably he said watch it twice a day, it's not just that there's so much depth to it, it's just that you only hear certain things first time round. And I think so many people have misunderstood this whole law of attraction manifesting thing, that, you just ask and it's given. Well, yeah, but there's actually depth, there's a lot of levels even in those statements, right? So what would you say to listeners who maybe have that sort of, they don't quite understand?
I would say is that it is more to do with, we're all unique. We all have our own unique expression. You were saying about cutting up the physical body, they can't dissect it. Obviously there's the quantum field and there's our chakras, energy bodies. So what I would say is, whatever it, I call it God. Some people don't like the word God, they prefer it as the universe. What I would say to you is, if you have a vision for something, no matter how crazy it sounds, like if you asked me 10 years ago, would I be a TEDx speaker? Would I run a podcast? Would I be writing a book? I would have been like, no. But I started out with me watching these inspiring people, and I had this little feeling in my heart, one day I'm going to be inspiring people. I just felt it inside of me. And yes, I felt it inside of me. I just didn't know how. I didn't know how it's going to happen, but I just knew. I just had this feeling, yeah. And I'm telling you now, God, the universe, doesn't play games. It's not a tease. It's not putting these things and dangling them in front of you. If you have a thought or a feeling that you're going to be doing something or you want something because it's for the highest good of all, it's not coming from ego. I want this because I want this nice Range Rover because obviously Range Rovers are lovely. There's nothing wrong with a Range Rover, and there's nothing wrong with material things, but that's for another episode. If it's coming from, I want to be better than somebody or I want to prove myself, it's not actually coming from a place of the highest frequency for all. So yeah, I know that I've gone around the houses with my answer, but God doesn't tease you. So whatever it is that you want, you can have it, but it's just working on that conditioning stuff, learning to accept yourself, warts and all, the shadows. When people say shadow work, they think it's something very scary. Your shadow isn't there to harm you. It's there to teach you something. So it's working with yourself and accepting all of the parts of you so that you can align in energy form with the thing that you want, because the thing that you want already exists in the quantum field. It's just meeting it and actually aligning with it. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love that explanation. Yes, it really is us that get in our own way. We get in our own way, and I think the key word that you said there is you felt. It is that feeling. We're so conditioned to, our feelings are not important, when actually, again, Oh my goodness, it's the opposite. It's so true. Our feelings are the most important thing. How we feel. If you can find a way to feel as though you are that person that you want to be, or where you want to get to, whatever. It is about finding a way, however you do it, to feel as though you've already done it. And that's where that knowing, like you just said, you just knew. That's that real high feeling place of, rather than I want to do this,
or I need,
I need, which is, because if you need something, that means you don't have it. So you're asking for it from a place of lack. Whereas if you can find that feeling place of already having it, all of a sudden you are in alignment. And that is the, I think that's what people miss. They just say, no, you could ask for anything. It's not, universe isn't listening in all the different languages on the planet to what you're saying. It's responding to how you feel. Like I think you said right at the beginning about energy. It's, it's all energy. It's all energy. Again, let's simplify it. Let's just take it all back. And it's all energy and frequency. So finding that feeling place of being that which you want, then it will manifest. Love that. So if anybody is out there that would like to know more about how they can, and so I suppose what you're teaching is really helping women to really come into that alignment and learning more about the cycle. So, at the end of the day, these things are going on in the universe, whether you believe it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you like it or not. So it would make sense, if you're not where you want to be, maybe it could be an idea to learn how to work with it, as opposed to just reacting to what life is throwing at you, which is really coming from you anyway, but you're in reaction rather than learning how to create and go with. So I'm so glad we had this conversation. I was totally stumped when we first talked. I thought, what? I've never, ever heard about this. But again, maybe we should have all heard about this when we were 12.
Yeah. But how, and just going back to something that you said, and I do need to end on this because I've got a client coming in the moment, is something that you said about, like, with your daughter, like how amazing, and you said about being 50 and you was a slow learner, but do you know what? You have learned at exactly the right time, the divine timing. Everything has divine timing. And how amazing is it that now you know this information by speaking to me and inviting me onto your show, that you can now research on this and dive deeper and teach it to your daughter. And then she can teach it to her daughter. You have changed the conditioning for your generations. You're the ancestor to do the change. How amazing is that?
Love that. Wonderful. So, well, thank you so much for your time, Laura. That's been a fascinating conversation. And so to the listeners, if you want to reach out, please reach out. And otherwise, I will see you next week with a Coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.